illegal wildlife trade, rather, is still one of the top illicit trades globally in terms of value. And this really has had a tremendous impact on economies and livelihoods, as well as security and development across the globe. But there really isn't a single country that isn't affected by the illegal wildlife trade. However, we've seen in the last few years predominantly the trade flowing between Africa and Asia, as well as Europe and North America, continue to be dominant end-use markets for a lot of illegal products. But during the pandemic, we've seen a continuation. This is still a very highly organized crime, often involving very organized and sophisticated criminal networks that are behind the trade. And while the pandemic has most certainly shifted dynamics in the way that product has been moving, just purely because of lockdowns and restrictions on border access, we have seen, since countries have begun opening up borders, an upswing in trade again. But we've also seen shifts away from traditional markets. So we are seeing a lot more online market trade as a result of just virtual products moving from physical to virtual markets, as well as the types of commodities and products that are being targeted. We've seen, while certain species have been spared or had a break from a lot of the poaching pressures, there's other species such as wild meats that have consistently, we've seen increases across the globe in the offtake of these types of commodities. So there has been some shifts, but we're monitoring that closely, of course. We've seen in the last few years a real upswing in the amount of pangolins, or scaly anteaters, that are being targeted for trade, and it's now pretty routinely reported as the most trafficked mammal on the planet. And the sheer volumes that we're seeing of pangolins in trade, tons and tons and tons of pangolin scales, and knowing just how lightweight these scales are in reality really shows the magnitude of the amount of poached pangolins that are going into trade. And this is really alarming, especially because these are nocturnal species that are very difficult to see in the wild in the first place. So the organization and the sophistication behind these types of trades is really revealing in these types of shipments that are being seized. As Traffic, we've been working on the area of financial crime for several years, and I've been leading on a lot of our efforts across the organization. And really, through this work is where we get to see the underbelly of the trade and how the networks are operating. And I'll answer this question in a couple parts, because I think it's important for people to understand that when looking at the financial aspects of this crime, you really start to see the convergence aspect of wildlife trade with other opportunistic, high value, low risk types of crimes. And through this efforts, we've seen a lot of convergence with other types of trade, such as drugs, weapons, and human trafficking, counterfeit goods, and other types of systemic polycriminality between falsification of documents, forgery, bribery, corruption, tax evasion, all of these types of things. So all of this to say that knowledge is incredibly important. And when working with the financial sector partners in particular, including the financial institutions, as well as the specialist units and government enforcement agencies, the ask is the same. There's a real need for quality data and information to reveal and help target resources to be able to effectively tackle some of these more complex criminal networks. And public-private partnerships is a really important avenue to be able to share and disseminate that critical information. So civil society organizations such as Traffic hold a lot of the answers to some of these critical questions that our partners really need to be able to do their work more effectively. And examples of public-private partnerships, such as the one here in South Africa called the SAMLET, is almost the gold standard of what could be for countries to replicate in terms of an ability for partners to be able to share incredibly important information with each other, and also improve the amount of suspicious transaction reports that are being submitted to government agencies for them to follow up. So this is an incredibly important tool. In a lot of countries, there are more informal public-private partnerships that could take lessons from more formalized and structured versions of them. But I see this as paramount or essential for us to be able to have the kind of impact that we collectively want.